Okay, settle in. Dim the lights. Perhaps draw the curtains. Let the everyday world fade away. Because tonight, we delve into the unsettling corners of the familiar. Welcome, seekers of the shadow, to the Somber Scroll. I'm your guide through the twilight, and tonight's tale is pulled not from ancient crypts or forgotten forests, but from the seemingly innocuous world of modern travel. The convenience, the affordability, the curated local experience. I speak, of course, of the Airbnb, a stranger's home offered up for your temporary comfort. But what happens when that comfort curdles? When the keys unlock not just a quaint getaway, but a nightmare meticulously arranged just for you. Tonight's story is one such account. We'll call it The Collector. Our story begins with Liam and Chloe. Young, optimistic, recently engaged. They weren't looking for luxury. They were celebrating a small win, Chloe's promotion, and sought escape. Escape from the city's relentless thrum. Escape from routine. They craved quiet, seclusion, a place where they could simply be together. Liam, a freelance writer, perpetually battling deadlines, particularly needed the peace to finish a difficult article. Their search led them online, scrolling through countless listings. Chalets buried in snow, beachfront bungalows baking in the sun, chic city lofts promising urban adventures. Then they found it. Tucked away in the listing pages, almost deliberately hidden, was a place simply called the Havenwood Retreat. The pictures were striking. An old stone-built cottage nestled deep within a dense patch of woods, miles from the nearest town. Ivy crawled up the weathered walls, framing small, deep-set windows. The interior shots showed polished, dark wood floors, antique furniture that looked genuinely old, not artificially distressed, a cavernous fireplace, and surprisingly, modern amenities, discreetly integrated. It promised absolute privacy and a chance to truly disconnect. The price was almost suspiciously low for such a unique property. There were only a handful of reviews, all glowing but brief. Perfectly quiet, one read. Unique atmosphere, said another. Exactly as described. Very private. The host, listed only as Eleanor Vance, had a profile picture obscured by shadow, showing only the silhouette of a woman standing before a large, ornate window. Her communication, when Liam booked, was prompt but curt. Precise instructions for key retrieval via a lockbox, a list of house rules, no parties, no unregistered guests. Respect the quiet, lock all doors and windows securely at night, and a simple enjoy your stay. No warm welcome, no chatty recommendations, just efficient. Liam felt a flicker of unease, the remoteness, the host's anonymity, the almost too perfect solitude promised. But Chloe, ever the pragmatist, brushed it off. It's probably just an older lady who values her privacy, she reasoned. And look at that fireplace. Imagine us curled up there. It's perfect, Liam. Exactly what we need. He couldn't deny the allure. The photos did look incredible, and the price, well, it sealed the deal. Their arrival, late on a Friday afternoon, as autumn bled into winter, was draped in the kind of premature twilight that clings to deep woods. The final stretch of road dissolved from cracked asphalt to a gravel track, then finally to a barely there dirt path, swallowed by encroaching trees. Branches, skeletal and black against the bruised purple sky, scraped against the roof of their car. When they finally pulled into a small clearing where the cottage stood, the silence was absolute. Not peaceful, but heavy, oppressive. The Havenwood Retreat looked even older, more imposing in person. The stone seemed to absorb the fading light, and the small windows glittered like watchful eyes. The air was cold, carrying the scent of damp earth and decaying leaves. Following Eleanor's instructions, Liam retrieved the heavy, ornate iron key from the lockbox. The tumblers groaned in protest as he turned it in the lock. The door swung inward, not with a creak, but with a heavy, soundless sweep, revealing an interior that was both exactly as pictured and deeply unsettling. The dark wood gleamed under strategically placed, low-wattage lamps. The antique furniture stood sentinel in the dim light. The air inside was still, unnaturally so, and carried a faint, cloying sweetness, like old potpourri mixed with something chemical, perhaps aggressive air freshener. "Wow," Chloe breathed, stepping inside, her voice hushed, almost reverent. "It's something. It's clean," Liam noted, running a hand along a dustless mantelpiece above the imposing fireplace. Almost too clean, like a museum exhibit. They explored. A small but functional kitchen, meticulously organized. A cozy living area, dominated by the fireplace, and two plush, if slightly stiff, armchairs. A single, large bedroom upstairs, with a four-poster bed draped in heavy, dark fabric. A modern bathroom, jarringly sterile compared to the rest of the house. Everything was immaculate, spotless, but oddities began to surface. There were no personal touches anywhere. No photos, no knickknacks, no stray books or magazines. It felt staged, impersonal. The bookshelves lining one wall of the living room were filled, but upon closer inspection, the books were all leather-bound classics, seemingly untouched, their spines perfectly aligned. Props rather than a personal library. Upstairs, in the bedroom, the large wardrobe was empty, except for a few wire hangers. But on the inside of the wardrobe door, almost hidden in the dim light, were faint scratches. Dozens of them. Thin, parallel lines gouged into the dark wood, as if someone had repeatedly dragged their fingernails down it. Liam pointed them out to Chloe. "Probably just moving furniture," she said, though her voice lacked conviction. She shivered slightly. "Let's get a fire going. It's freezing in here." As Liam wrestled with logs in the cavernous fireplace, Chloe investigated the kitchen further. She opened a cupboard, expecting dishes, but found rows upon rows of identical, plain white mugs. Nothing else. Another cupboard held only plain white plates. A third, only basic cutlery. Again, all identical. It was less like a home kitchen, more like institutional supply. "Weird, right?" she called out. "It's like someone bought everything in bulk from a hotel supplier." Liam grunted in agreement, finally coaxing a reluctant flame to life. The fire cast flickering, distorted shadows that danced across the room, making the antique furniture seem to writhe. That first night was quiet. Disturbingly quiet. The thick stone walls and dense woods muffled all external sound. There was no wind, no distant traffic, no animal calls, just the crackle of the fire and their own breathing. Liam tried to work, but the oppressive silence pressed in on him, making concentration impossible. Chloe attempted to read one of the leather-bound books, but declared it strangely stiff and unopened, as if it had never been read before. They went to bed early, the silence following them upstairs. Liam lay awake for a long time, listening. He thought he heard a faint scratching sound, rhythmic and low, seeming to come from within the walls. He strained his ears, but it faded. Perhaps just the house settling, or his own imagination running wild in the profound stillness. He eventually drifted into an uneasy sleep, plagued by dreams of endless, identical corridors and the feeling of being watched. The next day, they tried to embrace the seclusion. They went for a walk in the woods, but the trees grew so thick and uniform that they quickly became disoriented, the cottage vanishing behind them with unnerving speed. There were no paths, only tangled undergrowth and the pervasive scent of damp decay. A sense of being observed prickled at the back of Liam's neck. But whenever he spun around, there was nothing but silent, watchful trees. They retreated back to the cottage, unnerved. Inside, things felt subtly off. A book Chloe had left on the armchair was now back on the shelf, perfectly aligned. The mugs they had used for coffee that morning, left draining by the sink, were washed, dried, and back in their designated cupboard, indistinguishable from the others. "Did you do that?" Liam asked Chloe. She shook her head, her eyes wide. "No, I thought you did." They hadn't left the cottage empty for more than an hour. Had someone been inside? They checked the doors, the windows, all securely locked, just as they'd left them. "Maybe the host, Eleanor, has a cleaner who comes by," Chloe suggested, trying to rationalize it. "Maybe she forgot to tell us." Liam pulled out his phone to message the host. No signal. Of course, the listing had mentioned spotty reception, but this was complete isolation. No calls, no texts, no internet. They were cut off. A new layer of anxiety settled over them. They were alone, miles from anywhere, with no way to contact the outside world, in a house that seemed to be resetting itself. That afternoon, Liam decided to investigate the one locked door they had found. A heavy oak door under the stairs, seemingly leading to a basement or cellar. It had no keyhole, only a smooth, blank surface where one should be, and an ornate, unyielding handle. He pushed, pulled, rattled it. Nothing. It was solid, immovable. Pressing his ear against the wood, he heard only silence. Driven by a growing unease, he started examining the cottage more closely. He noticed things he hadn't before. Tiny, almost invisible scuff marks on the pristine floorboards near the walls, as if something heavy had been dragged. A faint, almost imperceptible discoloration on the ceiling in the corner of the bedroom, like an old water stain hastily painted over. Then he saw it. Tucked away high on the bookshelf, almost hidden behind a row of identical Dickens novels, was a small, dark object. Standing on an armchair, he reached for it. It wasn't a book. It was a camera. Small, modern, its tiny lens aimed directly at the living area. His blood ran cold. He frantically scanned the room, his eyes darting from corner to corner. He found another one, nestled amongst the dusty faux flowers in a vase on the mantelpiece. Then, a third, disguised as a smoke detector above the dining table. His breath hitched in his throat. They were being watched. He called Chloe, his voice tight with panic. She rushed downstairs, her face paling as he pointed out the devices. Horror dawned in her eyes. The immaculate cleanliness, the impersonal nature of the place, the host's remoteness. It all snapped into a terrifying focus. Who would do this? Chloe whispered, wrapping her arms around herself. Why? I don't know, Liam said grimly, his mind racing, but we're getting out of here. Now. They threw their belongings haphazardly into their bags, hearts pounding. The silence of the cottage now felt predatory, charged with unseen observation. Every shadow seemed to hold a hidden lens. Every piece of furniture felt like a potential listening device. As Liam grabbed their coats, his hand brushed against something, tucked deep within the pocket of the one he'd worn the previous day. A coat he hadn't touched since their arrival. He pulled it out. It was a small, folded piece of thick, expensive-feeling paper. Not his. He unfolded it. Then, written in elegant, looping cursive script were the words, "Don't try the cellar door. Some collections are meant to remain undisturbed. Eleanor Vance." She knew. She knew he'd been near the cellar door. She had been watching them that closely. Or she had been inside while they were out on their walk. Planted the note. The thought sent a fresh wave of ice through his veins. They practically ran to the car, throwing their bags in the back. Liam fumbled with the keys, his hands shaking. He jammed the key into the ignition, turned it. Nothing. A weak click Then, silence. He tried again. Click. Silence. The battery was dead. Panic gave way to cold dread. It couldn't be a coincidence. The dead battery, the note, the cameras. This wasn't just voyeurism. It was a trap. "What do we do?" Chloe asked, her voice trembling. "We walk," Liam said decisively. "We follow the road back. It's miles, but we have to try." They grabbed a bottle of water and set off, practically jogging down the dirt track, casting fearful glances back at the silent, watching cottage. The woods seemed darker now, the trees pressing closer, their branches like grasping fingers. The silence was broken only by their own ragged breaths and the crunch of their feet on the gravel. After about 20 minutes of hurried walking, the track rounded a bend, and they stopped, dead. Blocking the path was a large, fallen tree, not snapped by wind. The break was too clean, too fresh. It looked placed, deliberately felled to block the only way out. Hopelessness threatened to engulf Liam. They were well and truly trapped, cut off, surveilled, and now physically barricaded. She knew, Chloe choked out, tears streaming down her face. She knew we'd try to leave. Defeated, chilled to the bone, they had no choice but to return to the cottage. Re-entering the house felt like stepping into a predator's maw. The air was thick with unspoken menace. The fire had died down to embers, casting the room in an even more ominous gloom. That night, sleep was impossible. They huddled together in one of the armchairs downstairs, too afraid to go upstairs to the bedroom with its scratched wardrobe and hidden camera eyes. They kept the remaining logs burning, needing the light, the small illusion of warmth and safety. Every creak of the floorboards, every sigh of the wind outside. Had the wind finally picked up? Every pop from the fire sent jolts of adrenaline through them. Around 3 a.m., when the fire was low and the darkness outside was absolute, they heard it. A distinct sound from upstairs. Not scratching this time. A soft, rhythmic thump. Like something heavy being gently rocked. Thump, thump, thump. It seemed to emanate from the bedroom. Liam grabbed the heavy iron poker from the fireplace, his knuckles white. Chloe clung to his arm, shaking. "Stay here," he whispered, though his own voice trembled. Slowly, cautiously, he crept up the stairs, poker held ready. The thumping continued, steady, hypnotic. He reached the landing. The bedroom door was slightly ajar, a sliver of deeper darkness visible within. The sound was definitely coming from inside. He took a deep breath, pushed the door open wider, and raised the poker. The room was pitch black, save for the faint moonlight filtering through the window. The thumping stopped the instant the door moved. Silence rushed back in, thick and expectant. Liam strained his eyes, scanning the darkness. The four-poster bed dominated the room, its heavy curtains obscuring the interior. The wardrobe stood against the far wall, a block of shadow. Nothing moved. He took a hesitant step inside. The floorboard beneath his foot emitted a loud groan. He froze, listened. Only the frantic pounding of his own heart answered. Where had the sound come from? Had he imagined it? Was the stress finally getting to him? He backed slowly out of the room, pulling the door almost closed, and retreated downstairs to a terrified Chloe. He couldn't explain what, if anything, he had heard or seen. They didn't speak for a long time, just listened to the oppressive silence, punctuated by the dying crackle of the fire. Just before dawn, as the first gray light began to seep through the windows, Liam noticed something else. On the small table beside the armchair where they huddled, lay a single antique porcelain doll. It hadn't been there before. It was propped up, facing them. Its painted eyes seemed to stare directly at them, its porcelain face fixed in a serene, unsettling smile. Its tiny hand was raised, as if in greeting or warning. That was the breaking point. The subtle manipulations, the surveillance, the feeling of being toyed with. It crystallized into pure terror. This wasn't just about watching. It was about control, about collection. Liam remembered the note. Some collections are meant to remain undisturbed. He looked at Chloe, her face pale and drawn in the weak morning light. The cellar, he whispered. The note said collections, plural. The cameras, the mugs, the books. Maybe Eleanor Vance didn't just collect objects. A desperate idea formed. They couldn't leave by road, but maybe there was another way out, through the cellar. It was a long shot, maybe even foolishly dangerous, but staying felt infinitely worse. Ignoring the warning in the note, Liam went back to the cellar door. He examined it again. No keyhole, no hinges visible on this side. But running his hands along the frame, he felt a tiny, almost invisible seam near the bottom. Using the tip of the fireplace poker, he pried at it. With a faint click, a small, hidden panel popped open near the floor, revealing not a lock, but a simple, old-fashioned sliding bolt. Thick, heavy, but movable. He looked back at Chloe, determination hardening his features. She nodded, her fear momentarily eclipsed by a desperate need for action. Together, they slid the heavy bolt back. It moved with a grating screech that echoed in the unnatural silence. The door swung inward, revealing not steps, but darkness. A profound, absolute blackness that seemed to drink the light from the room. And a smell. Oh God, the smell. Damp earth, yes, but overlaid with the sharp, metallic tang of old blood and the sickly sweet aroma of advanced decay, far stronger than the chemical sweetness upstairs. Holding the poker out in front of him, Liam took a tentative step onto what he assumed were stairs. His foot met empty air. He stumbled, catching himself on the doorframe. It wasn't stairs. It was a sheer drop. A pit. Chloe gasped, pulling him back. They peered down, but the darkness was impenetrable. Liam cautiously dropped a small piece of wood he'd broken off a log. They listened. 1 second. 2 seconds. 3. Thud. It was deep. Then from the depths came a sound. A low guttural moan, followed by a faint, frantic scrabbling, as if something or someone was trying to climb the rough walls of the pit. Terror, pure and undiluted, seized them. They slammed the cellar door shut, the sound echoing like a gunshot. Frantically, they slid the bolt back into place, hands slick with sweat. The collection. The other collection. It wasn't porcelain dolls. They knew then that escape wasn't just about leaving the cottage. It was about surviving Eleanor Vance. Adrenaline surged. They ran back to the car. The dead battery, the blocked road, those were problems for later. Right now, they just needed distance. They sprinted back into the woods, choosing a different direction this time, away from the road, away from the pit beneath the house. They crashed through the undergrowth, ignoring the branches that tore at their clothes and skin. Fear lent them speed, propelled them forward through the dense, disorienting trees. They ran until their lungs burned and their legs screamed, until the Havenwood Retreat was hopefully far behind them. Only then did they slow, gasping for breath, listening. The silence of the woods felt different now. Still eerie, but no longer charged with the specific, curated menace of the cottage. It took them hours, stumbling through the dense forest, using the weak afternoon sun as a desperate compass, before they finally broke through the tree line and saw it. A real road. A paved road. A car sped past in the distance. Civilization. Sobbing with relief, they flagged down the next car, a beat-up pickup truck, driven by a startled-looking farmer. They poured out a disjointed, terrified story. The cottage, the cameras, the dead battery, the blocked road, the cellar. The farmer listened, his initial skepticism slowly turning to concern, maybe even a flicker of recognition. Havenwood, he said slowly, rubbing his chin. Old place back in the woods, heard stories. Locals stay clear. Belonged to the Vance family for generations. Last one, Eleanor. Folks say she kept to herself. Maybe too much. He drove them to the nearest town, to the small police station. The officers listened patiently, though Liam could see the doubt in their eyes. Surveillance cameras in a rental? Unsettling, illegal, but perhaps explainable as overzealous security. A dead car battery? Could happen. A fallen tree? Storms happen. Even the cellar. Old houses have strange cellars. They promised to drive out, check the property, contact the owner. Liam and Chloe gave their statements, feeling drained. hollowed out. They knew the police wouldn't find anything. Eleanor Vance, whoever or whatever she was too careful, too meticulous. The house would be cleaned, reset. The cameras perhaps removed. The cellar door bolted tight. The collection undisturbed. They never went back for their car or belongings. They took a bus, then a train, putting as much distance as possible between themselves and Havenwood. Weeks later, back in the familiar noise of the city, the trauma lingered. Nightmares plagued their sleep. Every creak of their apartment building, every flicker of a security camera LED sent shivers down their spines. Liam found himself unable to write. The silence he once craved, now feeling threatening. One rainy Tuesday morning, an email notification popped up on Liam's phone. It was from the Airbnb platform. "We hope you enjoyed your stay at the Havenwood Retreat. Would you like to leave a review for your host, Eleanor Vance?" Below the prompt, the app displayed the host's profile picture, the shadowed silhouette against the ornate window. But this time, Liam zoomed in. He cranked up the brightness on his screen, and in the deepened shadows of the photo, previously unnoticed, he could make out faint shapes reflected in the window glass behind the silhouetted figure. Rows upon rows of them, pale, still, and smiling, like porcelain dolls or faces. So the next time you're scrolling, looking for that perfect, secluded getaway, perhaps pause, look closer at the photos. Read between the lines of the reviews. Ask yourself, who is really behind the listing? And what collections might they keep, hidden away, waiting for their next guest? Until next time, seekers, stay wary. The most terrifying places aren't always abandoned castles or haunted graveyards. Sometimes they're just a click away, listed with 5 stars, promising absolute privacy. Pleasant dreams, if you can find them.